Welcome to Spicy Lady. Some children lose their childhood long before they lose their toys. And some people grow older in years. Others grow older in understanding long before their time. There is a kind of girl who learns certain lessons far earlier than she should. While others are worrying about school, friends, and simple childhood adventures, she is quietly learning how to handle pressure, disappointment, responsibility, and emotional burdens that do not belong to her. Nobody announces it when it happens. There is no special day that marks the moment she grows up too fast. It happens little by little, until one day she is carrying a mindset far older than her years. This is where the story of the SpicyLady-Sigma child begins. Many people look at her as an adult and admire her strength, independence, and ability to stay calm under pressure. What they often miss is the journey that created those traits. They see the outcome, but not the cost. They do not see the young girl who had to become strong before she had the chance to simply be a child. Growing up too fast changes the way a person sees the world. It affects how they trust others, how they handle emotions, how they form relationships, and even how they define success. Some of the qualities people admire most can actually be rooted in experiences that forced maturity long before it was naturally meant to arrive. In this video, we will explore the fascinating psychology behind the SpicyLady-Sigma child who grew up too fast. We will uncover the hidden patterns, surprising strengths, and silent struggles that shape her life in ways most people never notice. Stay with me until the end, because some of the deepest insights are often the ones that explain your life better than you expected. Let's dive. Deeper Spicy Lady. Number 1. She learned responsibility before she learned childhood. One of the most overlooked realities of a SpicyLady-Sigma, who grew up too fast, is that she learned responsibility before she learned childhood. While other children were figuring out who they were, she was figuring out how to handle situations far beyond her age. While others were making mistakes and learning through play, she was worrying about problems that should never have been placed on a child's shoulders. Somewhere along the way, she stopped being just a child and became someone people depended on. At first, this can look like a strength. She's mature, reliable, responsible. She seems wiser than her years. Adults praise her for being sensible and understanding. People admire how much she can handle. But what many fail to see is the hidden cost of that praise. When a child is constantly rewarded for being useful, she slowly learns that her value comes from what she does for others rather than who she is. She becomes the problem solver, the helper, the dependable one. Everyone knows what they need from her. Very few stop to ask what she needs for herself. As she grows older, this pattern often follows her into adulthood. She becomes excellent at meeting responsibilities, supporting friends, managing crises, and carrying burdens. Ask her to solve a difficult problem, and she will likely have an answer. Ask her to help someone else, and she will probably know exactly what to do. But ask her a simple question such as, "What do you actually want?" And she may suddenly go quiet. Not because she lacks dreams, not because she lacks ambition, but because she spent so much of her life focusing on everyone else's needs that she never had the chance to fully explore her own. Imagine spending years reading everyone else's map while never drawing one for yourself. Eventually, you'll become an expert at guiding others, yet feel uncertain about your own destination. That is the hidden struggle. The girl who grew up too fast often becomes a woman who knows how to survive almost anything. Yet her greatest journey is not learning how to carry more. It is learning how to reconnect with the parts of herself that were forced to grow up before they ever had the chance to simply be young. Point 2. She feels older than her actual age. Even in her 20s or 30s, she may feel disconnected from people her age. One of the most fascinating things about a SpicyLady-Sigma who grew up too fast is that she often feels older than her actual age. Not physically, not necessarily intellectually, but emotionally and psychologically. You might find her sitting in a group of people her own age and still feel like she is observing life from a completely different place. While others are excited by things she outgrew years ago, she is thinking about deeper questions, bigger responsibilities, and long-term consequences. This is not because she believes she is better than anyone else. It is because her life experiences forced her to develop perspectives that many people do not encounter until much later. When a child spends years dealing with pressure, uncertainty, family struggles, emotional burdens, or responsibilities beyond her age, her mind matures faster than her calendar does. She starts seeing realities that most children are protected from. As a result, she often reaches adulthood feeling like she skipped an entire stage of life. For example, while her friends may be focused on temporary excitement, she may naturally think about stability, trust, personal growth, and emotional security. Conversations that seem meaningful to others can sometimes feel shallow to her because her mind has spent years processing much heavier subjects. This often creates a strange feeling of disconnection. She may laugh with people, spend time with them, and genuinely care about them, yet still feel like nobody fully understands the way she sees the world. It is like reading a book several chapters ahead while everyone else is discussing the beginning. What makes this even more interesting is that many people mistake her maturity for having everything figured out. They assume she is unaffected, unbothered, and completely confident. The truth is often very different. Many spicy Lady Sigma who grew up too fast are still carrying unanswered questions, hidden fears, and unhealed experiences from their younger years. They simply learned how to function despite them. The wisdom she carries is real, but so is the loneliness that can come with it. Perhaps that is why one of her greatest challenges is finding people who connect with her depth rather than just admire it. Because feeling older than your age is not always about being ahead of others. 3. She developed a handle-it-yourself reflex. Before asking for help, her brain automatically starts calculating how to solve the problem alone. One of the most powerful traits a spicy Lady Sigma develops after growing up too fast is what psychologists might call a self-reliance instinct. But in everyday life, it looks much simpler. She develops a handle-it-yourself reflex. The moment a problem appears, her mind does not automatically think, "Who can help me?" Instead, it immediately starts searching for solutions. She begins making plans, weighing options, and figuring out how to carry the burden on her own. What makes this interesting is that it often happens so quickly she does not even realize she is doing it. For many people, asking for help is a normal part of life. For her, it can feel strangely uncomfortable. Not because she is arrogant, not because she thinks she knows everything, but because experience taught her that relying on others can be unpredictable. Perhaps there were moments in childhood when she needed support and nobody came. Maybe promises were broken. Maybe she learned that waiting for help often led to disappointment. Over time, her brain adapted. It created a simple rule. If you want something done, do it yourself. At first, this mindset feels like a superpower. She becomes incredibly capable. She can handle pressure, solve problems, and stay calm when situations become difficult. While others panic, she is already thinking 3 steps ahead. But every strength has a hidden shadow. The problem is that she often treats every challenge as a solo mission, even when support is available. She can be overwhelmed, exhausted, and carrying more than any person should, yet still refuse to reach out. Imagine someone trying to carry 10 heavy boxes alone while several people stand nearby willing to help. Instead of sharing the load, she convinces herself it is easier to struggle through it by herself. That is not strength. That is survival mode. The deepest truth is that dependence feels riskier to her than exhaustion. Being tired is familiar. Trusting someone else with part of the burden feels uncertain. Yet one of the most important lessons she eventually learns is this. Independence is valuable, but isolation is expensive. There is a difference between being capable of carrying everything and believing you must. A spicy Lady Sigma who grew up too fast often discovers that true strength is not measured by how much she can carry alone. It is measured by knowing that she does not have to. 4. She became the adult in rooms full of adults. Many spicy Lady Sigma grew up managing the emotions of parents, siblings, or caregivers. One of the most defining experiences of a spicy Lady Sigma who grew up too fast is that she often became the adult in rooms full of adults. At an age when children should have been worrying about homework, favorite cartoons, or what game to play next, she was paying attention to things no child should have had to carry. She was reading the emotional temperature of the house. She knew when someone was stressed. She knew when money was tight. She knew when arguments were coming. In many ways, she became a silent observer of problems that were far bigger than her years. What makes this even more remarkable is that nobody may have officially asked her to take on that role. She simply stepped into it because someone had to. Maybe she became the peacemaker between family members. Maybe she comforted a parent who was struggling emotionally. Maybe she looked after younger siblings while everyone else was overwhelmed. Whatever the situation, she learned a lesson very early in life. If things are going to stay together, I have to help hold them together. Imagine a 10-year-old child worrying about the emotions of grown adults. Imagine a young girl carefully choosing her words because she does not want to make a difficult day even harder for someone else. That is a level of emotional responsibility many people do not experience until adulthood. The problem is that children who become caretakers often stop being children. They become highly aware of other people's needs, but disconnected from their own. They learn how to comfort others, but struggle to ask for comfort themselves. They become experts at carrying emotional weight without realizing how heavy it has become. As adults, this pattern often follows them. They become the friend everyone calls during a crisis, the family member who keeps things organized, the person others lean on when life gets messy. Yet behind that strength is a hidden truth. For years, she was carrying responsibilities that never belonged to her. That is why one of the most important lessons for a spicy Lady Sigma is realizing that she was never meant to be everyone else's emotional anchor. She deserves support, too. She deserves care, too. And she deserves the chance to experience life without feeling responsible for holding everything and everyone together. 5. She struggles to celebrate success. Achievement often became a duty rather than a victory. One of the quietest struggles of a spicy Lady Sigma who grew up too fast is that she often finds it difficult to celebrate her own success. From the outside, this can seem strange. She works hard. She achieves impressive things. She reaches goals that many people only dream about. Yet instead of feeling proud, she often moves straight to the next challenge as if nothing important just happened. Why? Because somewhere along the way, achievement stopped feeling like a victory and started feeling like a responsibility. As a child, she may have learned that success was expected, not celebrated. Getting good grades was not a special accomplishment. It was simply what she was supposed to do. Being responsible was not praised as extraordinary. It was treated as normal. Solving problems was not viewed as impressive. It was just another task on the list. Over time, her mind adapted to this way of thinking. Instead of asking, "Look how far I've come," she asks, "What still needs to be done?" Instead of enjoying the moment, she focuses on the next obligation. Imagine someone climbing a mountain. Most people would reach the top, stop for a moment, admire the view, and appreciate how far they have traveled. But she reaches the summit and immediately starts looking for the next mountain. She barely notices the one she just conquered. This pattern often follows her into adulthood. She earns a promotion and immediately worries about performing well enough to keep it. She finishes a major project and instantly starts stressing about the next deadline. She reaches a personal goal and quickly shifts her attention to something she has not achieved yet. The result is a life full of accomplishments, but very few moments of satisfaction. What makes this especially sad is that many people around her see success. She sees unfinished work. Others see progress. She sees distance still left to travel. The deeper truth is that she was conditioned to focus on survival and responsibility rather than celebration. Her mind became so focused on moving forward that it forgot how to pause. One of the most powerful lessons she can learn is that success is not just about reaching the next destination. It is also about acknowledging the road already traveled. Because a life spent chasing milestones without appreciating them can leave even the most accomplished person feeling strangely empty. Sometimes wisdom is not found in achieving more. Sometimes it is found in finally allowing yourself to appreciate what you have already achieved. 6. She has a high tolerance for difficult situations. One of the most misunderstood traits of a spicy Lady Sigma, who grew up too fast, is her unusually high tolerance for difficult situations. On the surface, it looks like strength. She can remain calm when others are falling apart. She can handle pressure that would leave many people emotionally drained. She can adapt to chaos, disappointment, uncertainty, and stress with a level of composure that often surprises those around her. People admire this quality. They see someone who seems unshaken by life's storms. What they do not realize is that this strength often has a deeper story behind it. When a child grows up in an environment where challenges are constant, difficulty stops feeling unusual. It becomes familiar. Over time, her mind learns how to function in situations that would overwhelm others because she has been practicing since she was young. Imagine two people walking into a storm. One has spent their entire life in sunshine. The other has spent years walking through rain. Naturally, the second person will seem more comfortable when the weather turns bad. That is often the reality of the spicy Lady Sigma. She is not calm because life has been easy. She is calm because life taught her how to survive difficult seasons. But there is a hidden downside that many people never talk about. Because hardship feels familiar, she can sometimes mistake familiarity for normality. She may stay in exhausting friendships longer than she should. She may tolerate disrespect that others would immediately walk away from. She may remain in environments that drain her energy simply because part of her believes that struggle is just another part of life. For example, someone else might leave a toxic situation after seeing a few warning signs. She, on the other hand, may convince herself she can handle it. After all, she has handled worse before. That mindset can become dangerous. The ability to endure pain does not mean pain should be endured indefinitely. The ability to survive unhealthy situations does not mean those situations deserve a permanent place in her life. One of the most important lessons she eventually learns is that strength is not measured by how much suffering she can tolerate. Strength is also knowing when something is no longer healthy and having the courage to walk away. Because surviving difficult situations is a valuable skill. But building a life where survival is no longer the main goal is an even greater achievement. The strongest version of her is not the woman who can endure everything. It is the woman who finally realizes she does not have to. 7. She became emotionally fluent, but emotionally private. She learned to read every mood in the room because it was necessary for survival. One of the most fascinating contradictions of a spicy Lady Sigma, who grew up too fast, is that she often becomes emotionally fluent, but emotionally private. In simple terms, she becomes incredibly skilled at understanding other people's emotions while becoming surprisingly disconnected from openly expressing her own. As a child, this ability was not developed for fun. It was developed for survival. She learned how to notice the small things that most people miss. A change in someone's voice, a forced smile, a look of frustration, a sudden shift in energy. Long before she understood complex psychology, she was already studying human behavior without even realizing it. She became an expert at reading emotional weather. Just as some people can sense when rain is coming before the clouds fully appear, she could often sense tension, disappointment, anger, or sadness before anyone said a word. Why? Because growing up too fast often meant paying attention to things that other children could afford to ignore. If a parent came home stressed, she noticed. If there was conflict brewing in the family, she sensed it. If someone's mood could affect the atmosphere around her, she learned to detect it quickly. Over time, this created a remarkable ability. As an adult, she can often understand what people are feeling before they explain it. Friends may wonder how she always seems to know when something is wrong. People often feel understood around her because she notices details others overlook. But hidden behind this strength is a quiet struggle. While she became highly skilled at understanding everyone else's emotions, she never received the same attention for her own. In many cases, her feelings took a back seat to more urgent problems. There was always something else that seemed more important. Someone else's stress, someone else's crisis, someone else's needs. As a result, she learned how to carry emotions rather than express them. You may ask her how she is doing and receive a short answer. You may spend hours talking about your problems while knowing very little about hers. Not because she is secretive, not because she does not trust people, but because somewhere deep down, she became accustomed to being the listener rather than the one being heard. The irony is that the person who understands emotions the best is often the person who shares them the least. And one of her greatest lessons in life is realizing that empathy should not only flow outward. Her feelings deserve space, too. Her struggles deserve attention, too. The same compassion she so freely gives to others is something she deserves to receive for herself. 8. She often feels responsible for things beyond her control. When a child grows up solving adult problems, she develops the illusion that everything is somehow her responsibility. One of the heaviest burdens a SpicyLady-Sigma, who grew up too fast often, carries is a sense of responsibility for things that were never hers to carry in the first place. As a child, she may have spent years trying to fix situations that were far beyond her age and beyond her control. She tried to keep the peace when adults argued. She worried about problems she could not solve. She felt responsible for other people's emotions, decisions, and struggles. Without realizing it, she learned a dangerous lesson very early in life. When something goes wrong, it must somehow be my job to fix it. At first, this mindset can look admirable. She becomes dependable, responsible, someone people can count on. She steps up when others step back. She takes action when problems appear. She becomes the person who is always trying to hold everything together. But beneath that strength is a hidden trap. Because she spent so many years carrying responsibilities that did not belong to her, she can start believing that everything around her is somehow her responsibility. If a friend is unhappy, she feels obligated to make them feel better. If family members are struggling, she feels guilty for not doing more. If a relationship falls apart, she immediately starts searching for what she could have done differently. Even when situations are completely outside her control, her mind still asks the same question. What should I have done? Imagine standing outside during a storm and believing it is your job to stop the rain. No matter how hard you try, the weather is not yours to control. Yet many SpicyLady-Sigma approach life this way. They carry emotional umbrellas for everyone around them and blame themselves whenever the storm continues. The truth is that responsibility and control are not the same thing. She can care about people without being responsible for their choices. She can support others without carrying their burdens. She can love someone deeply without becoming accountable for every outcome in their life. One of the most liberating moments in her journey comes when she finally understands this distinction. Not every problem is hers to solve. Not every disappointment is hers to fix. Not every person's happiness depends on her efforts. Because the reality is this: carrying the weight of the world may make someone feel strong, but it also makes them exhausted. Wisdom begins when she realizes that some things are simply not hers to carry. And sometimes the healthiest thing she can do is put down a burden that never belonged to her in the first place. 9. She carries invisible grief. Not grief for a person, but grief for experiences she never had. One of the deepest and least understood realities of a SpicyLady-Sigma, who grew up too fast, is that she often carries invisible grief. This is not the kind of grief most people recognize. It is not always connected to losing a loved one. It does not come with a funeral, sympathy cards, or public expressions of sorrow. In fact, many people around her may never notice it at all, because what she mourns is something much harder to explain. She mourns experiences she never had. She mourns a version of childhood that never fully belonged to her. When most people think of grief, they think about losing something they once possessed. But there is another kind of grief that comes from never having something in the first place. For many SpicyLady-Sigma, childhood was not entirely about discovery, play, and carefree moments. It was often filled with responsibilities, worries, emotional burdens, or situations that required maturity long before it should have been necessary. As a result, she may look back and realize there are entire parts of childhood she never truly experienced. Maybe she never felt completely carefree. Maybe she was always worried about something. Maybe she spent more time managing problems than creating memories. Maybe she learned how to be responsible before she learned how to simply be young. Years later, this creates a strange and quiet sadness. She may find herself watching children laugh freely and feel something she cannot quite put into words. She may hear people tell happy childhood stories and realize she has very few of her own. She may even feel emotional over small moments because they remind her of something she never got the chance to experience. What makes this grief invisible is that it often hides behind competence. People see a capable woman. They see strength, maturity, and resilience. What they do not see is the little girl who had to grow up before she was ready. The little girl who learned survival instead of spontaneity. The little girl who became dependable while secretly wishing someone else would take care of things for once. The beautiful truth, however, is that healing does not always mean recovering the past. Some chapters cannot be rewritten, but she can still give herself what she missed. She can learn to experience joy without guilt. She can create memories she never had. She can allow herself moments of wonder, fun, and freedom. Because while she cannot reclaim the childhood that slipped away, she can stop letting its absence define the rest of her story. And sometimes the greatest act of healing is finally giving yourself permission to live beyond survival. Final words. Some people grow older in years. Others grow older in understanding long before their time. When you look closely at the psychology of a SpicyLady-Sigma child who grew up too fast, you start to see a pattern that runs through every part of her life. She learned early how to observe, adapt, and survive in emotional environments that were not always stable. That shaped her into someone deeply aware, highly capable, and unusually strong under pressure. But strength like this has two sides. On one side, she becomes someone people rely on. She notices things others miss. She stays steady when situations become chaotic. She carries responsibility with a level of calm that often surprises those around her. Life trained her to function in complexity, so she handles it well. On the other side, she carries silent imprints from a childhood that moved too quickly. She learned to read emotions before she learned to express her own. She learned to solve problems before she learned to rest. She learned to be useful before she learned to simply exist without pressure. This creates a life pattern where she often gives more than she receives, understands more than she reveals, and endures more than she speaks about. Yet the most important truth in her journey is not found in how strong she became, but in what she slowly learns to unlearn. She begins to realize that she does not always need to carry everything. Not every responsibility belongs to her. Not every emotional weight is hers to hold. Not every situation requires her to be the one who holds it together. Healing for her is not about becoming less capable. It is about becoming more free. Free to rest without guilt. Free to trust without fear. Free to experience life without constantly preparing for what could go wrong. And in that realization, she does not lose her strength. She finally learns how to live without letting her strength become her only identity. Thank you for watching and God bless you. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Nail polish, I'll see you in the next one.